This month on In Case You Missed It, amid the economic fallout from COVID-19 and rising rents, Rhode Island's homelessness problem has only gotten worse. Learn more about the shelter crisis in our state and how an unlikely place, the emergency room, has been forced to fill in the gap. In our continuing My Take series, hear from former nun and Rhode Island Attorney General Arlene Violet as she shares her thoughts on the increased polarization of the United States and the fracturing of America. Plus, on Season 2 of Maria's Portuguese Table, explore the richness of Portuguese culture through the lens of its delicious food. All this and much more in case you missed it. Welcome back to In Case You Missed It, featuring some of the best new content from Rhode Island PBS, plus an exciting preview of what's coming soon. Over a decade ago, Rhode Island led the country as the first to pass a homeless Bill of Rights. It mandated that people cannot be discriminated on the basis of their housing status. Today, however, those rights provide little comfort for the hundreds of Rhode Islanders who find themselves sleeping on the street, often in harsh weather conditions. Rhode Island PBS Weekly reports on the shelter crisis.
We weren't born with a label on us saying this is what we want to be when we grow up, and I know I certainly didn't, I didn't ask for it. I didn't ask for addiction. I didn't ask for homelessness. Even up here in the alleyway where there's steam blowing, it's warm, very warm.
Maureen Sumner was 41 years old when she became homeless. She spent 6 years living on the streets in Rhode Island.
Warmer months were easier, as you would imagine, but when it got colder, that's when I would start getting nervous, like, oh, what are we gonna do?
She says shelters were often not an option.
They're not the safest, they're not the cleanest. They have 101 criteria that you have to meet. So we just stopped trying. We made our home a tent. And that's what we had to deal with for months and months and years.
Sumner's story is not unique. According to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, about 1,200 people are currently experiencing homelessness in Rhode Island. On this night in March, Dr. Rebecca Karb walks the streets trying to help people living outside. Karb is an emergency room physician who's become acutely aware of the challenges facing Rhode Island's homeless population.
Even folks that have Section 8 vouchers or other kinds of subsidies, still can't find a place to rent with the resources that they have because it's just too expensive. There also aren't enough shelter beds in Rhode Island.
But the problem is not exclusive to the streets. Karb says it's in the emergency room too.
So we see people experiencing homelessness every day or some form of housing insecurity.
Many come in for medical treatment, but all too often it's about simply finding a warm place.
They might come in for shelter on a night when the weather's really bad or it's particularly cold and they don't have a safe place to go.
There's a lot of deep cubbies in these buildings, and depending on which buildings you go to, you're not really bothered as long as you're out of there, at a decent time. And decent time, I mean 5:30, 6 a.m.
When Maureen Sumner was living on the streets, she would spend endless nights in the cold with her partner.
We were sleeping in a child's tent behind the Regency sign. That's where we had our first tent. And it was quite scary. I mean, anything can happen.
You can watch the full story at ripbs.org/weekly. Next up in our continuing My Take series, we hear from someone who knows a thing or two about Rhode Island political ups and downs. She is a former nun and the first female elected Attorney General in the United States. Here's Arlene Violet with an issue that's front and center in her mind.
Regrettably, I don't think we are the United States of America anymore. We are fractured America. We don't even speak to one another. Citizens vilify other citizens. We don't even talk at dinner tables anymore because we're afraid that that dinner is going to end up in a toxic environment and spoil the entire occasion that brought us together. Hello, I'm Arlene Violet, and this is my take on the fracturing of America. I'm a black person, I'm white, I'm Native American, I'm Italian, French, Irish, Jewish, German, I'm heterosexual, I'm gay, I'm transgender, I'm binary, I'm not sure. But I'm all those things for certain because I'm a citizen of the United States of America, and that is the country that has promised me that I have inalienable rights. Margaret Thatcher once said, "This country of America is different from us. Europe was founded on history. They are the people that are founded on a philosophy." I look at this country and it's sad to me that so many of us are really taking the gun to the other side of the equation because we disagree. Citizens hate other citizens for no other reason than they don't think like they do. They fight about politics, but it's not just a great argument where sides present sides and then they walk away as friends. It actually has turned into alienation. We are tearing down also the bedrock of principles in here, this fabulous country of ours, or what should be a fabulous country. The Bill of Rights is under attack. Take the First Amendment. Journalists are vilified. They're trying to ban books now in libraries. Schools are subjected to a curriculum which really is whitewashed. The truthfulness or the complete truthfulness of our history is not in fact taught anymore from the perspectives of the people who are sometimes victimized by American history. So as I look at the United States today, regrettably, it's a really poor picture. And we're also bad toward immigrants. You know, back in 1886, when we got the Statue of Liberty from France, they gave it to us because they really believed that we would welcome those huddled masses, those poor, those tired people who are looking for a break in life. But yet today, we vilify immigrants. That's not the America that we're supposed to live in. I hope that America can be turned around. We need to go back to our basic founding principles. We've got to stop fighting angrily with each other and get talking again. We need to do less arguing and more listening. Let's go back to the basics, can't we? If we really want to make America great again, in that full sense of the term, it's time for us to start speaking with each other and stop hating each other. I'm Arlene Violet, and that's my take on the fracturing of America.
You can watch the full story on ripbs.org/weekly. And don't forget to tune in for new episodes of Rhode Island PBS Weekly, Sundays at 7:30 p.m. with an encore on Wednesdays. When Maria Lawton was 6 years old, her family immigrated to the United States from the island of São Miguel in the Azores, a stunning archipelago in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Maria documented the cooking and food memories so vital to her childhood, rediscovering her family's traditional recipes and bringing them to her award-winning series, Maria's Portuguese Table. In this episode, she visits Columbia Street in the heart of Fall River's Portuguese community.
Today on Maria's Portuguese Table, we go to a place known as the 10th Azorean Island, Fall River, Massachusetts, home to many successful Portuguese-owned businesses, and I plan on visiting one.
I don't know. I did not sign up for this.
We also will get to spend time with internationally known comedians and my dear friends, Derek and Brian of the Portuguese Kids, where I get the inside scoop of what it's like growing up as a Portuguese kid from the source themselves, their mothers.
He didn't have a lot of support for me starting. Yeah. Thank God he never listened to me.
Join us today for Maria's Portuguese Table. At the mouth of the Taunton River lies Fall River, and along its banks, remnants of an era past remain in the form of textile mills. Textile manufacturing was king during the 19th century, and these brick buildings were the siren song for many Portuguese immigrants who came here in search of work and a chance at the American dream. Quickly, the Portuguese community in Fall River grew strong, with many families coming in from the island of São Miguel. So tight is this bond between São Miguel that you will find a full-size replica of the gates to the city right here in Fall River. The Portuguese have been able to thrive here in Fall River, with Portuguese-owned businesses throughout the city. One of these businesses is Michael's Provisions, where they make all sorts of sausage products. And today, I get to learn the difference between chouriço and linguiça.
This is chouriço, this is homemade chouriço,
Okay.
and this is linguiça. I'm going to explain everything about
right.
chouriço and linguiça.
Okay, make sure you're listening to this. So this is it.
Chouriço is the same thing as linguiça spices-wise.
Okay.
Okay. The only thing is linguiça is a little thinner, and chouriço is a little thicker, not fatty.
Correct.
This is made with beef casings
For the chouriço.
for the chouriço. The linguiça is hog casings.
Hog. You've got pig and you've got
beef.
cow. Yeah.
The only thing is, in the linguiça, it doesn't show that much fat because it's thinner. Now, a lot of people say that linguiça tastes better. I kind of agree with that because in the smokehouse, it's thinner.
Yeah.
It grabs the smoke better than the chouriço.
So there's the difference in the
Right.
taste.
Now that I have a little more clarity on what makes chouriço different from linguiça, I think it's best I learn how they're made. To do that, I get a VIP tour of the plant.
I'm actually looking forward to this. This is really exciting.
You can watch Maria's Portuguese Table Sundays at 7 p.m. as well as on demand at ripbs.org/MPT. Next, a lively experiment host Jim Hummel and a panel of local journalists discuss legislation that would make police body camera footage and government officials' emails more accessible to reporters and the public.
Antonia, you've been leading the coverage on this. You had your first story in February and then the follow-up bill. Tell us where it stands right now.
Yeah, so there's a bill that's been introduced in the Senate by Senator Palma. That one has not gotten a hearing yet. And in the House, there's a bill by Representative Solomon that did. Essentially, there's a pretty long laundry list of stuff they're looking to change. Some of it, I'd say most of it actually is not particularly controversial. But there are a few points that have been getting some pushback, mainly to do with police. They're looking to close a loophole so that you couldn't say, we're not going to release this body camera video because there's an ongoing investigation. And they're also looking to say records of internal investigations, if a police officer is being investigated internally for some kind of misconduct, that would be public. And also, they are trying to say that if you're redacting something, I think we've all probably gotten public records requests, they're just an entire black page.
3 Sharpies
Yeah.
worth, right?
Right.
Yep, yeah. So government agencies would have to explain, A, they couldn't charge you for doing that, and B, they would have to say, here's the law we're citing for why this is redacted. Here's the exemption of the law that applies to this.
Your last story, a lot of government agencies came out responding to this. Were you surprised how many were there, or did you expect that pushback?
No, I expected there'd be some kind of pushback to everything that's being proposed. I just didn't know specifically where it would be. It's interesting that the redactions is really where they came down. Essentially, their argument is that we don't have enough staff, we don't have the budget to be spending more time on defending ourselves here.
So, Amanda, you and I, we've been doing this a long, all of us have been in the reporting ranks. Explain to the people watching, it's like, oh, is this an inside reporter thing? Why? Talk
Public
about why
records.
APRA is key to the job that you do.
Yeah, and not just my job. Public records are the people's records, the people's reports. It's not just the reporter who's asking for these records. Anybody has access to it. It's really key to democracy and understanding how our government works, how our public officials work, how our police departments work, where the money is being spent. Transparency equals accountability. This is what's really important. And I got to give a special shout out to Senator Lou DePalma. I don't often give politicians any shout outs ever, but he sat down and listened to us from the New England First Amendment Coalition and before drafting these bills, because he wanted to understand what the issues were and how he could be helpful. And you know what? He followed through. I'm really impressed with the legislation, and we support it with NEFAC. As a journalist, I support it as well. I think it would really solve a lot of problems that we run into in trying to get any type of reports. I mean, even the narratives for police reports. Right now I get pushback from some police departments that say, well, I can't release this report because we don't have an arrest. They often don't have arrests. Sometimes it's just a complaint of something that's going on. But they should err on the side of transparency and not on the side of, I'd rather not tell you anything.
They should use Florida, basically, as the Florida
that would be nice.
Gives you everything.
That would be nice.
I look at it, agreeing with Amanda, transparency is key in this situation. At the end of the day, we're always on the side of the taxpayers and trying to get the truth out, explaining what's going on to those at home and those even outside of Rhode Island, what's going on here.
Watch a lively experiment Fridays at 7 p.m. with an encore Sundays at noon. Also on demand at ripbs.org/lively. Ocean State Sessions, now in its second season, features local musicians performing original music along with insightful interviews about their inspiration and craft. This next segment features Evening Sky performing Where the Sea Meets the Stars. Watch Season 2 of Ocean State Sessions Sundays at 10 p.m., plus enjoy exclusive online content at watch.ripbs.org. In its final episode of the season, Art Inc. visits Metal Lab, a class where firearms and people are transformed through the power of art.
Let's visit the Steel Yard for a lesson in art's power to provoke, inspire, and heal.
I am Diana Garlington. I'm the mother of Essence T. Crystal, who unfortunately I lost in a drive-by shooting in 2011. Once this happened, they gave her a number on a list as an unsolved murder homicide. She's not just a number. Her name is Essence.
I'm Scott Lapham. I'm an artist and an educator. 4 of my students were lost to gun violence. One Gun Gone came about as a positive response to the idea that so many people were taken out of our lives by gun violence. So I wanted to have a space that literally and figuratively could talk about how we felt about gun violence. Since I'm an artist and a visual artist, the idea of having an art project made the most sense because having an art project is a way to have a conversation.
We wanted to make a project where the art is more valuable than the gun.
And then also to have Diana Garlington, an anti-gun violence activist, now involved in the programming itself. She was learning welding. She was there every week talking to young people.
It took an unfortunate circumstance in order for me to change my lifestyle. Unfortunately, that changed November 26, 2011.
The only rules that we have in One Gun Gone is that we don't glorify guns or gun violence. And when we hold the sculptures, we hold them with 2 hands open. When you hold it like this, you can have a different relationship with it. Now we can look at it, we can think about it. We're not acting as we're conditioned to. We're conditioned to pick this up and use it as a weapon.
I already know it's a firearm, I already know it's a dangerous instrument, but like to have that in the steel shop and to present it and pass it between each other in that way was just reminds me of, and it's sobering to what we really are holding.
Before the students even see one of these weapons, it's decommissioned. And that starting point then has the culmination of them being used in a sculpture, a metal sculpture, then metal fabrication and welding, where that weapon then becomes a part of that sculptural piece so that it has a different function.
Art is a different use. This was a gun, but now it's a sculpture. And when you guys transform it into a sculpture, it's going to talk about how you feel about gun violence.
Losing Essence shattered my home. Those windows broke. Pieces of the floor began to fall apart. And that is what led us to my project.
The full season of Art Inc. is on demand at ripbs.org/artinc. And now, coming in May from across the pond, it's History in the Making, Rhode Island PBS will be airing the coronation of King Charles III and the Queen Consort, presented by the BBC. This special live coverage will feature the ceremony, commentary from correspondents, royal pundits, and spectators. It's an event that promises the ultimate in pageantry and one of the largest parades in living history. Tune in May 6th, beginning at 2:30 a.m. on Rhode Island PBS. Thank you for joining us this month. We'll see you next time, in case you missed it.